Hi, PerspectaWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday, December 16th. A major winter storm is about to arrive in the Mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S. It'll have an impact all the way up to New England from later today into the Thursday morning time period. I have some of the highlights right up front here that I want to kind of emphasize, and then we'll go through the details and we'll focus in on a high resolution model that I think has a pretty good handle on the overall situation. First of all, in terms of arrival time, and for the most part, this storm will arrive as snow. Maybe down in the DC metro region it'll be a mix of snow and sleet, but certainly snow up across Philadelphia and New York City upon arrival time. And these are the estimated times for the precipitation to arrive in the DC metro region: mid to late morning hours, early to mid afternoon in Philly, and late afternoon in New York City. And it won't be too long after the initial starting time that the precipitation starts to fall more heavily, only an hour or two later. So for example, in Philadelphia, let's say arrival time around 1 to 3 p.m. By 4 or 5 p.m. certainly can be some heavy snow falling in this case, and similar, not too long after arrival time it'll become heavier in DC and New York City. Sleet is going to become a major player with this system in many parts of the I-95 corridor region, really from I-95 to about 25 or 50 miles to the north and west of I-95. Sleet will become a major player, let's say in areas especially just to the northwest and west of DC, all the way to the Philadelphia metro region. I think that's sleet will become a major factor, and could even have a mixing in with sleet all the way up to New York City and Long Island, although in those areas snow will, especially in New York City metro region, snow will be the dominant precipitation type. Freezing rain also a factor, primarily at or along or just south of the Pennsylvania-Maryland border. I think freezing rain will be a factor in the DC metro region, across Baltimore, all the way up to the Pennsylvania-Maryland border. Don't really expect to see freezing rain in the Philadelphia suburbs. Maybe in the city itself there'll be a little bit of freezing rain, but I think sleet will be the main precipitation type for a while up across the Philadelphia metro region. Whereas DC, they get everything. They get sleet, snow, freezing rain, and in all areas, including the metro regions of DC and especially Philadelphia, New York City, it will be hard pressed to rise above the freezing mark. So any kind of freezing rain will freeze upon hitting the surface. And by the way, sleet, another way to describe sleet is simply ice pellets falling from the sky. Freezing rain is when you have a liquid raindrop that falls through the atmosphere and then hits the ground and freezes because of at or below freezing temperatures at the ground level. Also, want to point out right up front here, there is a very vigorous wave of energy that will push over the Mid-Atlantic region later on this afternoon, especially during the evening hours. That is likely to lead to mesoscale or small scale banding of the precipitation, which in turn leads to bursts of heavy snow or bursts of heavy sleet. You could even have a burst of mixed precipitation, and there can very well be thunder snow or thunder sleet in some areas associated with this passage of the very vigorous wave of energy in the upper part of the atmosphere. And a small scale meaning it could be snowing like heck in one particular area and then just 10, 20 miles away, not much going on for that brief time period. So these are some of the bullets I wanted to cover up front. Now this is an excellent plot I want to show here from Weather Bell Analytics that shows the different precipitation types expected for this upcoming major winter storm. It really tells a story that I want to tell here. First of all, in terms of snow, upstate Pennsylvania, upstate New Jersey, across New York City, all the way into New England, primarily a snowstorm here. There certainly can be some mixing down across the south central and southeastern part of Pennsylvania, but for the most part, upstate PA, across the northern half of New Jersey, and then New York City to New England, primarily a snow event. Meanwhile, on the opposite end of the spectrum, primarily rain from coastal New Jersey down across the southern half of the Delmarva Peninsula into the southeastern part of Virginia. This particular green here represents primarily rain. This is the area with snow, and indeed it'll be a major snowstorm upstate Pennsylvania here, certainly central Pennsylvania all the way to east central Pennsylvania. This is a major snowstorm. So primarily, if not completely, rain in this area, primarily, if not completely, snow in that particular part of the Mid-Atlantic region. Now, sleet. I said sleet is going to be a major player, and indeed, this is the map that represents ice pellets, and expected to become perhaps heavy at times in the Philadelphia metro region, for example. The general sequence of events here will be accumulating snow. I'm talking about the Philly metro region. Accumulating snow followed by a period of sleet, and it could even come down hard enough to accumulate an inch or two of sleet, followed by a change back to accumulating snow overnight tonight. Again, anywhere from D.C., especially on the northwest side of D.C., to Baltimore, to Philadelphia, and even to New York City and Long Island, I expect some sleet to get involved. Now, finally, we have freezing rain here. I think the freezing rain will be limited, confined to the areas near, over the Pennsylvania-Maryland border and just to the south there. That extends from the D.C. metro region across to Baltimore and maybe into the Philly metro region. But again, I think suburbs to the north and west of Philly, primarily snow or sleet. And again, sleet will be a big player. But the freezing rain, the liquid falling from the sky, may be confined to South Philly, for example, all the way across to the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, Wilmington, Delaware, Baltimore, and down into the D.C. metro region. So a wide array of precipitation types for this event, especially across the I-95 corridor. Well, here's a look at the IntelliCast radar loop here, and there is a large area of precipitation headed towards the Mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S., and it spells trouble when you have an Arctic high sitting over southeastern Canada and very cold, very dry air situated in this part of the nation. You send this kind of precipitation into the cold and dry air, and that spells trouble, and indeed we have a major impacting storm coming to the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, and all the way up into New England. Right now, snow across the Ohio Valley and rain all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Well, before we get to the high-resolution NAM model run from last evening, just want to show the latest surface map. And the main thing I want to emphasize here is, again, we've talked all week about very, very strong high pressure sitting over the southeastern part of Canada. That is funneling very cold and dry air down along the east side of the Appalachian Mountains. And that is a main reason why we have a big problem today and tonight into tomorrow across the Mid-Atlantic, the northeast U.S. And look at some of these dew points that are showing up in green here. 6 is a dew point right near New York City, and 4 right across in southeastern part of New York State. Very dry air, and that's typical of an Arctic air mass. One of the ways you can tell if you're in an Arctic air mass is how dry it is, and that does a couple of things. It tends to inhibit the arrival of the precipitation because it'll take a little bit of moistening, a little bit of time to moisten the lower part of the atmosphere. You may actually see snow falling on radar in your particular area over the next few hours, but it's not reaching the ground yet, and that's because of the very heavy, very dense, cold, dry air mass at the surface. It'll take a little bit of time for it to reach the ground. This, for example, on radar is not reaching the ground right now across central Pennsylvania. But again, this is a key player, the Arctic high that sticks around because of that blocking pattern we've talked about over the past several days up across Greenland, northeastern Canada. Very cold, very dry air locked into place in the northeastern quadrant of the nation. Well, let's walk through last night's 0Z run of the high resolution version of the NAM model. I think the higher resolution models tend to have a little better handle when you're this close to the event time and you have such mesoscale processes as we will for this particular system. First of all, we're going to have mesoscale banding, as I mentioned up front. That could produce some heavy bursts of snow or sleet, maybe even some thunder snow or thunder sleet. Also, since we have that strong high to the north, we have damming. That's cold air funneling down the east side of the Appalachians. Kind of a small scale effect. High resolution models tend to do a little better job. The global models like the GFS, even the European model, tend to erode that cold air locked in on the east side of the Appalachians a little bit too quickly, and that of course can make a big difference in terms of whether you have frozen precipitation or liquid precipitation. Well, let's just walk through here. First of all, snow in blue, mixed precipitation in the purples and the pinks, and rain represented by the green. This is now, right now, starting off early this morning, and here we have the likely beginning as snow in the Washington, D.C. metro region during the mid-morning hours. Maybe some sleet mixed in. Certainly cannot say all snow for sure, but in some areas it'll be all snow, other areas it'll be a mix of snow and sleet by the mid-afternoon, by the mid-morning, arriving in D.C., maybe the late morning in the northern and northeastern suburbs. That continues to push to the north and east. It looks like snow arriving in the Philadelphia metro region early to mid-afternoon hours. That should be in the form of snow. Notice at this particular time here in the middle of the afternoon, we're seeing some of this purple showing up here. That's some sleet, and again, kind of right along that I-95 corridor region, sleet will become a major factor here. Let's move ahead here. Now we are into the late afternoon, early evening hours, and look at this band of sleet right here, right along the I-95 corridor region, really just northwest of D.C. to just north of Baltimore, and then cutting right into the Philadelphia metro region, where I think again sleet will become a major factor. Now just to the north, and this is now the 7 p.m. forecast map from the high resolution NAM model. This color here actually represents very heavy snow. Down here, sleet. But this is the mesoscale banding I've been alluding to, where you could have some bursts of tremendous snow. Look at this legend right here. That's what we're seeing right here. Very heavy snow. East central Pennsylvania, south central Pennsylvania, maybe the far northern and western suburbs of Philadelphia can get in on this during the late afternoon, early evening hours. Bursts of snow, maybe some thunder snow as well. This is the time that that upper level energy moves over the mid-Atlantic region. It will continue into the night, and all this burst of heavy snow, possible thunder snow throughout south central Pennsylvania, central PA, east central Pennsylvania, into the New York City metro region here. Heavy sleet falling just to the north and west of D.C., maybe even in D.C. itself, all the way across the Philadelphia metro region. I think some sleet will get involved in New York City, Long Island area. It's a little bit less certain than it is, in my opinion, across Philadelphia. And then what happens, that low pressure area moves to the north over the Delmarva Peninsula, and then kind of takes a turn to the east. And what that'll tend to do in the overnight hours is wrap cold air back in from the northwest to the southeast. And those areas that become mixed in terms of precipitation, like D.C., Philadelphia, will change back to all snow later on tonight into the wee hours of the morning. And here's the forecast map for around 1 a.m. Notice, back to snow, and it could even be some decent accumulating snow, especially across southeastern Pennsylvania. We'll see over the next frame or two here. By the way, there could be a dry slot getting involved as well. If the precipitation slackens off sometime in the early evening hours, don't be too surprised. It should be brief, maybe an hour or two, and then kick right back in. Notice here, we go out a little bit farther in time. Look at this. Changes back to snow, even down into D.C. metro region, maybe even some heavier snow bands coming through in the wee hours of the morning in Philadelphia. So the general sequence of events, let's say in Philly, accumulating snow followed by an extended period of sleet, maybe even accumulating sleet on the order of an inch or two, followed by a change back to accumulating snow in the overnight hours. Same sort of sequence of events in New York City, although I think snow will be the major precipitation type there, and just a complete mixed bag across the D.C. metro region. Let's now go into the late night, and finally here we are by 7 a.m. starting to pull off to the north and east. Upper part of northeastern U.S. into New England has a decent snowfall continuing into the morning hours on Thursday. So a major winter storm about to hit the Mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S., and New England. Stay tuned for updates later today on PerspectaWeather.com. I am meteorologist Paul Dorian.